Good news is we have saved the best for last. Our speakers will tell us about data-driven strategies for understanding and engaging your shoppers. Joining me now are Tim Clark, Director of the Inmar Center for Brand Excellence, and Charlie Gage, Senior Shopper Strategist at Inmar. Gentlemen, the podium is yours.
Thanks, John. This is Tim. Appreciate you having us today, and we look forward to talking about, with the availability and the data that it's out there, how can brands and manufacturers really start to use some of the data to find some shopper insights to really increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of engaging and activating the shoppers. A little bit about Inmar, 4,500 employees. This is our 36th year. We have a massive digital network reaching more than 200 million shoppers. Charlie and I will spend some time today in terms of some of the insights that you can get. We have access to over 1 billion baskets of shopper data that we can access down to the UPC level. And today we work with many, many kind of new and emerging brand clients. So to set the table here a bit, as many people on this call are aware and work in this market every day, really it's a very, very dynamic marketplace, and that's probably an understatement. But we thought we'd put together a few slides just to kind of paint the picture for what's going on out at retail. And really, we think it's around this idea of more. And we'll start with more shoppers. So if you think about years ago when there was really one adult in the household doing most of the shopping, today 85% of U.S. adults report that they're doing at least half of the household responsibility for the grocery shopping. So, frankly, there's just more shoppers out at retail today, making the shoppers that brands are looking for even more complex. There's also more choices. So I found this to be an interesting fact as you think about retailers and category merchants looking to incrementalize and grow their categories and their segments. One way they're trying to do that is through increased assortment. So since 2010, active items, active UPCs at retail have actually increased 32%. But even with that increase of assortment and UPCs, that's only driven sales up about 4%. When I think about this through the shopper lens, though, there's even more choices out there at retail in terms of the assortments, making the manufacturer's job even more important to make sure that their offerings stand out. There's also more stores. So with the advent of dollar channel, the club channel, what's going on at drug in terms of trying to steal share of wallet from other channels, limited assortment and discount, our own internal research here at Inmar shows that consumers are shopping 4.5 different channels of trade per month. And there's more diversity. There is no shortage of activity and conversations around the millennials and the shopper of today and tomorrow. This generation will look much different than the previous generations. Just one stat that 44% of millennials are part of a minority race or an ethnic group. So we think it's important today to talk about how we use the data to really understand our brand shoppers, the shoppers that are shopping in the categories in which we compete, even down to the segments of the shelf that we're on. So we're going to take you through some examples today, some different ways we think that there's opportunity for strategic use of the data to really help manufacturers define their core shoppers and understand their purchase behavior, really understand what the key drivers in the category are and identify opportunities for growth. And again, this is based on their actual purchase behavior, not their purchase intent. We also work with manufacturers to pursue strategic expansion, looking at their current and potential retail partners and really understanding who that shopper is driving their brand and their category helps them better understand which retail partners they should be working with and investing in. And in the age of incrementalization, we see so many brands today that are not only launching new items within their current category, but are actually extending the brand into different categories, which puts them into different parts of the store where the shopper dynamics are much different than where they've operated. So with that as a backdrop, we want to take you through some examples today of how we actually put the data to work and what it starts to look like and the insights that are developed. And we've kind of put a framework around this, really kind of jumping off some of the key fundamental questions that our manufacturing clients ask us and how the data is used to get at answering and providing solutions to some of those key strategic questions. The first one, which is pretty fundamental, is I know who I believe my core target consumer is, but who is actually buying my product? So for a lot of manufacturers, they have a creative brief. They have an idea through attitudinal research or focus groups or surveys on their social media properties who they think that picture of that target consumer is. But how does that really look based on who's actually buying their product at retail? And John, I think that might bring us to our first poll question.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being completely and 1 being not at all, to what extent is this a challenge facing your brand? Make your selection and hit the submit button, please.
Yeah, so it looks like the responses here are, most of them are in the 6 to 10 range, telling us it's we're kind of validating the challenge that's here. And I'll turn it over to Charlie now. And again, going back to the first question, I think I know who my target consumer is, but how do I understand who's truly buying my product or my brand or my category at retail today? And let Charlie take you through some of the ways in which the data can start to shine some light on that.
Great. Thanks, Tim, and thanks everybody for having us here today. It's with the ever-changing consumer, even if this is not a held belief within your organization that this is a challenge that you face, chances are it is, and you don't even know it. So this first example I'm going to talk to you about is it's a great one, really one of my favorites. And we're working with a specialty cookie company that had a very clear picture in their mind of who they were going after. Their target shopper was a millennial with slightly higher than normal income, but certainly a younger, hipper shopper that has kids in the family. And when we looked at it, we actually found that those folks that were actually buying the product skewed way older. So the mean age at 55 years old, about 10 to 12 years older than the average across the retailer set that we're looking at. Certainly a very strong female showing. And the kids indicator there at 54% was not really indicating what we would have expected or what the client was expecting. So we also look beyond just these first few demographics and pull in household income, occupation, so on and so forth. And we just really showed the client that some astounding numbers. So 38% of their shoppers were what's considered in the top 5%. They're at 100K plus. Very heavily white collar. The education, is kind of what they were looking at. But look at the numbers down in the bottom right-hand corner. We, certainly not a whole lot of single households, which millennials tend to over-index on the single households. But many, many multi-generational households or, grown adults that have kids that are grown adults that are also living at home, or perhaps a third generation even in the house where you've got 4+, 29% of the shopper base with 4+ adults in the household. So really helped them, they were succeeding. It wasn't that the brand was completely failing. They just didn't quite understand who it was that they were connecting with in the store. And this really helped refocus their marketing efforts.
Yeah, and Charlie, I would add to that. I think the real benefit, while this is key, and when we work with a lot of our manufacturers, a lot of times this data will validate what their assumptions are. A lot of times it will challenge it. But this is data, and we'll also talk a lot about indexing, where this is kind of a brand look, but you could do the same type of data pull for the brand versus an index to the segment or index to the category. And really this drives more than just shopper marketing. It drives your tone of voice on social media. It drives your packaging design, your product attributes and call outs. So a lot of different metrics to make sure to use the data to make sure that you're not guessing, putting a little bit more science into the art of really who is shopping our brand at retail, who's shopping the category, and what that profile looks like. Something else that we get a lot, especially with growing brands, is how do I quantify the value of my shopper to the retailer? So as we talked about before, looking at the market trends, There's a lot of new upstart brands. There's a lot of local brands and all the other trends that are going on out there. Obviously, category merchants are looking with limited space for brands that are going to help incrementalize, bring new shoppers to the space, not just cannibalize the current offering they have in there. So for a lot of brands, they're trying to create a data-driven, quantified case for the shopper that they're bringing into the aisle, while it's valuable to the category merchant and into the retail banner as a whole.
Another poll question on the screen. How would you go about quantifying the value of your shoppers to your category? There are 4 choices. Make a selection and please hit submit.
All right, great. So it looks like we actually have a fair amount of agreement on this one. And well, we've got one person that's unsure. So we'd like to walk you through how we help our clients do that with another great example here that we'd love to share with you. So, as Tim alluded to, it's becoming ever more difficult for emerging brands to get either to get wider distribution or to get more facings within the store. And if you're able to make the case, the value of the shopper to the retailer, it really will help strengthen your case, right? It's about more than just selling one more unit in the retailer. It's about what kind of shopper you're attracting and what kind of shopper has strong affinities for your brand. So we look at a lot of these key metrics to measure those, to measure how valuable your brand shopper is. We compare those to the average shopper. This example here is a relatively new brand, although it's 2-3 years old, and has distribution in one or two of the large drug retail channels, and is looking to try to expand beyond that. And so we see here that the average basket of the brand shopper, while it's really not significantly higher than the average, about $16, the frequency of visiting the store is significantly higher, 44 versus the 34. So they are treating this drug channel as not just a place to pick up your medications or first aid, even some HBC. They're making many trips across the year. We look at the number of categories that they purchase in an average trip, as well as the breadth of the shop over the entire year. So that's the number there at the bottom. So a much more valuable shopper. Granted, the number is slightly smaller on the average basket, but over time, in 10% more categories in the store. So definitely an ideal shopper from the retailer's perspective.
Quick question that came in just now. Does this research cover other channels besides drug?
It does. That's a great question. So the majority of the retail partners that we have are in the grocery space, but we also cover drug. We've got in the dollar channel as well as military commissaries. So we get a great mix of different shoppers and shopping behavior. So this next view, we also take a look at what kind of baskets do these shoppers have. So we've already seen, how much are they spending on average, how often do they come, and this really helps make the case for a lower amount of service required, right? So if you have more items, a larger basket, the retailers make more margin on that sale because there's less servicing that goes into that sale. And what we found here was that the overwhelming majority of the baskets of this brand shopper were still what we would consider in drug a full basket. These are 4+ items, and over-indexing compared to the average. So it was not just while the product is a relatively low dollar item that is viewed as a convenience item, it was driving shoppers that were filling up and tend to use that retail channel as a channel of choice.
Great, thanks, Charlie. So we've covered how to truly identify shoppers based on what's being purchased at retail, based on their behavior versus their purchase intent. We've talked about how do we use the data to really define and quantify the value of my brand shopper to the category and to the store. Now we'll kind of look a little bit more internally towards the brand's users, and how can the data help me really start to segment my loyal shoppers? Obviously, our shoppers and our loyalists aren't created equal. When I'm doing promotion on shelf, brands will ask, am I giving a discount to a loyal shopper who would have purchased anyway, and it's a margin impact? How many new shoppers am I really engaging with my trade and my consumer promotions, and can the data help me with that?
Okay, another poll question. Heavy users of your brand tend to be the most valuable in terms of spend purchase frequency. How much of your total shopper base is in this group? Make your selection and hit submit, please.
Well, it looks like most of the responses are in the about half to less than half response. So,
I don't know what happened there. We lost the results, but these are not the results, although they look like they could be.
There they are.
Yeah.
So 40% less than half, 30% about half, 30% more than half.
Yeah, so I'm surprised. So that's a large number that believes that it's at least more than half, or even at about half. I think that's a big number, surprising to me. But I think that's probably a more widely held belief than you would expect. So this next example we look at, the client was looking to move from a certain kind of product into a same category but a different area of the store and a larger pack size, and really wanted to understand how they were being as successful as they were with the limited product assortment, where the sales were coming from. And in this case, we found that 9% of the users we would consider the heaviest of users were contributing 53% of the sales. That's a 6x ratio of dollars to household when you compare that to the average. So a very small percentage of the shopper base driving the lion's share of the sales. When you add the two biggest groups, the two heaviest groups, I apologize, 25%, we're all the way up to 76% of the shopper base, 76% of sales. Sorry, all over the place today. But really helped open their eyes to the fact that there is a small segment. These will differ across brands, but typically it's a much smaller segment that's driving the majority of the brand sales.
Yeah, and Charlie, I think this is important as a lot of brands are trying to really understand true ROI with trade spend and consumer spend, and in addition, over and above short-term volume lift at retail, am I really engaging new shoppers? Am I incenting trial and adoption? And I think this starts, and this is a great benchmarking tool because this changes over time based on a brand's life cycle. It really starts to help brands understand the huge payback potential exists as you move them up the loyalty chain.
To further make the case here for the client, we look at how often those shoppers are visiting the store, and also how often are they purchasing the brand. And so we see, even among the heaviest of users that were visiting the store on average about every 4 days, they were only buying the brand every 5th trip, every 20 days or so. And the product that they were selling at the time certainly did not last 3 weeks. But to be sure, we look at the average units that they're purchasing per basket. We see that the heaviest of users were buying over 2 per transaction. Still certainly opportunity, though, to capture another sale because the shoppers in that store as frequently as they are, so chances are they were shopping into a competitive brand. When we take the units per basket and we lay that against the frequency that they're purchasing the brand, just to compare between the heaviest of users and the moderate users, you see a 5x number of units, right? So 2.2 units. If you were to take that to every 62 days, that'd be 6.6 units. It's a 5 times factor in terms of total units, just compared to between the heaviest and the moderate users. Further emphasizing the need to focus on the heaviest of users, learn what's interesting and unique about them, and market to them directly.
Now we're going to transition over to another area that a lot of brands ask kind of direction on in terms of the data, and that really gets down to product attributes and claims. I think a lot of brands today in the better for you movement, they're organic, they're non-GMO, they're gluten-free, they're eco-conscious, they're sustainable. Maybe the good news is that they have a laundry list of different attributes and benefits and claims that they could work into their communication platform, but they can't do them all, and they can't do them all effectively. So can the data help me really understand, while I might have 7 or 8 things to talk about, what are the 2 that are most relevant and would activate the shoppers in this category?
All right, so I really love this one. The brand that we're looking at here had a product, or has a product, that has many allergen-free attributes, claims that makes the product unique, certainly makes it unique. And they were really interested in digging deeper to determine what of those claims was really driving the shopper to the product, so that they could have a more focused message, both on packaging and in direct marketing. And this is just a sampling of the indicators that we use, but we essentially score all of the brand shoppers and the average shoppers on all these different attributes. And this is really the first time that we've gotten into an example here where we're now going beyond the basket, going beyond the brand, and seeing what else they're buying. So these numbers represent the indices of the brand shopper versus the average shopper in terms of how much they buy these different food attributes. So what we were able to identify is that the shoppers of this brand really have a strong affinity for nut-free products, certainly functional foods. That's one of the biggest trends today. Organic is really important, but something like a non-GMO that also is a very big trend was clearly not driving the affinity for the brand as much as these other food attributes.
Yeah, I would add to this, or reiterate, I guess, attitudinal versus behavioral here. There's an actual study that came out not too long ago, and you probably read similar studies that millennials claim, 83% of millennials claim they would only buy fair trade chocolate. If you go into their basket, only about 13% actually do. So, one thing we like about the data is behavioral. It's not just purchase intent, but we're looking at every item they're putting in their basket across categories and departments in the store to see what they're actually doing on these different attributes. So John, I think this is our next poll question.
Yes, it is. What additional product preferences or lifestyle info would be helpful in understanding product claims and attributes that are relevant to your shoppers? This is an open-ended response, so we need some input here from the folks listening.
We'll give you guys an extra minute on this one. It is an open-ended, and we realize if we advance, you probably lose the opportunity. If there's something that you want to share with us, please feel free to throw it in the chat window as well, and we'd love to hear. We're just curious to see what other needs are out there.
There is one reply, Tim.
That looks
there are
like
a couple.
Size, servings per package, lifestyles, millennial moms, I think was noted just in terms of a life stage or a life cycle.
Yes.
Something else that we think is a really actionable way to use this type of data is, how can I identify strategic partners for cross-brand promotional opportunities, for co-merchandising in the stores, for cross-content on my social media and my website. And the data goes very deep. We'll give you just a dip in the toe in the water in terms of some of the indexing by department and key category, and really all the way down to the brand level indexed against your brand shopper for the types of products and the types of brands that where there's an affinity.
Okay, great. So here we're looking at the basket penetration by department. Again, this is not limited to the purchase occasion of the product. Rather, we're looking at the entire history of the shopper across 52 weeks. And the green bar being your brand, the gray the average. And then we show the index over to the right to really quickly help identify where those opportunities may lie. And this is one of my favorite examples. I think I've said that a couple of times. But it's true. So they're all, every client engagement is unique and special, and this one was no different. So here we're working with a small energy drink brand that was, starting out, helping, still finding its identity, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. And as we can see here, we look across departments. The first department of size that we come to that has strong over-index, strong affinity would be beer and wine. And so, while it's an energy drink, we weren't sure exactly what we could do there. It really it took going a level deeper to really identify where there might be an opportunity to cross-promote. And so we pull in all the brands. We're looking at, I think in this case, we had gotten down to craft beers. We saw there was a much stronger affinity for craft beers versus the domestic beers. And, just looking at this chart, the size of the box gives you an idea about how many shoppers are buying it, but the color indicates really the strength of the index for your brand shopper. And we see that a couple of brands, you got the national audience here might not be familiar with, but a Foothills is a local beer here in North Carolina. We've also got Natty Greens as a local. So we saw that there actually was a really strong local tie. And while we knew there was interest across the board with craft beers, really the strongest there with a local beer. And so able to help connect a couple of brands that might actually benefit by co-promoting with each other.
We had a question come in. Does the data always have to be indexed against the average shopper? Can it be indexed against a specific set of shoppers?
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. Did somebody really ask you that?
Yes.
Because that's the perfect setup for us. So absolutely. All the examples here we've shown you today are indexed back to the average shopper. But with most of our clients, we then do take it a step further and look at either the category shopper, and we actually will have an example here in the next couple of slides, or we can look at the competitive set. So who else is in your category, and what do their shoppers look like, and how do yours differ from them? Because ultimately, that's as detailed as you need to get if you really want to succeed against the big guys.
So this next section will play right into that is, how can we use the data to quantify the brand's contribution to category and segment growth? I mean, that's the narrative that all brands, regardless of size, need to take out and quantify to their retail partners, and how can this type of data help that narrative?
So this last brand is a great example of, attempting to move into a new category. So a very mature and strong brand, lots of brand equity, a very loyal shopper base. So what we're looking at here are the shopper base that have been buying the established product. I think I'll leave it at that level of detail. And we, using the household information, we're able to segment these shoppers into different life stage segments. So the size of the bubble gives you an idea of how many shoppers fit into that universe, and then the color again is the index to the average shopper. So we see that they're really winning on shoppers in the suburban style, for example, middle-aged, ethnically mixed suburban families, but not really doing so well with singles and starters, right? And that's a big segment. And they're looking to move into an adjacent category with a new product offering, and they've met up with some opposition, right? Because there are established players in the category, and the things they keep hearing from the retailers were, why should I give you space? I've got established brands in the space. You're just going to be cannibalizing sales from the leaders here in my space. And so on the next slide here, we actually are able to look at that at the category shopper to say, okay, let's compare the mix of the established brand shopper that we know we have a strong following with the category shopper, and it is a lot to take in. I apologize for that, but you can see there are some really quite stark differences. So for instance, I called out the suburban style. Maybe that's not the best example. The singles and starters. So the category that they're looking to move into is relatively strong, kind of middle of the road though in the singles and starters. That actually poses an opportunity for this brand, certainly, right? And then where they're really, really strong, like the booming with confidence, they're to the middle, kind of in the left. They would actually be bringing incremental shoppers into the category because currently they're more of a borderline segment for that category in those stores. And we really helped make the case that we'd be bringing new shoppers down the aisle and expanding the category, being beneficial both for the category and the manufacturer as well.
Thanks, Charlie. Obviously this is just representative of some of the types of things that the data can go. Obviously there's a lot more here, but hopefully we gave you a sense today for how some of these actual behavioral metrics, looking at the brand, indexing to brand shopper, the category shopper, or the segment shopper can lead to insights to help your messaging, to improve targeting with your promotion, where those segments are that exist for growth, kind of where's the lowest hanging fruit for the next business base to grow. So again, just kind of to recap, putting the data into action, helping define your shopper, use the data to help defend or expand your presence in shelf sets. Obviously a big one is to use it for increased targeting, kind of going from shotgun to rifle approach with our precious investment dollars, stretching those budgets, increasing ROI, and eliminating the waste. So I think that there's a lot of money in dollars that are invested and spent to somebody who's not buying my brand or the category and probably never will. So how do we use the data to understand who those people are and put programs in the marketplace that we're not talking to somebody who's going to engage in the category, much less the brand. And increase brand awareness and overall shopper reach, and I think compile all of this internally and externally and increase the strategic nature of our relationship with our retail partners, spend smarter, be very measured in our ROI, put in KPIs and performance metrics that, again, I would say puts a little bit more science into the art of marketing and shopper marketing.
Okay, we have another poll question. How would you like to use shopper data? Select all that apply, and please hit submit.
Well, it is pretty flat across the board, which means I think some people in our audience today can see it have an application to a lot of things, or they can, all of those things are important to them since it's check all that apply. So I believe with that, we will open it up to Q&A. I think we have a few more minutes left.
Okay, I don't see any questions come in, but on the previous slide, you did have a slide about the Inmar-insights.com site, and maybe you want to tell the audience about that.
Yeah, this is a relatively new site. For those on the phone who have awareness of Inmar and how far we've been along, there's trend reporting that we do. The basket platform that we've been through today is one of many data sets that Inmar offers. We also do a lot of shopper surveys to understand incentive, to understand best promotional practices by category, and some of the trend reporting and things that brand can use as part of their overall business model are available if you want to go to Inmar-insights.com. Some of the tools and products are there. There's obviously more, but there will also be contact information if you have further questions or want to see the full kind of menu of offerings.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions coming up. You have some contact information on the screen to reach Tim and Charlie by email or by phone. Excellent presentation, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, John.
Thank you.